What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Panthers Advice. Today, man, the Carolina Panthers got a reality check in more ways than one, and it's not necessarily a bad thing either, I think. Um, you look at Andy Dalton at quarterback, that was bad. I don't know how he's almost fallen off that much, to be honest with you, but the team played pretty good. It just feels like after a while, they got fed up. I'm not gonna lie to you with the turnovers, the sacks. I mean, it was not a complete team, right? Defense, they struggled a little bit against the run, especially in the first half. And it was kind of like they were holding the pipes together until it burst, right? And then James Cook took that one to the house. But the offense, man, it could not produce. Now as we look at some stats real quick, we're gonna start with Andy Dalton, 16 for 24. 175 yards, one interception, and 7 sacks. All right, so let's talk about that real quick. 16 for 24, 175 yards, one interception, and 7 sacks. Look, it seemed like, as they pointed on the broadcast, that every time he did a pump fake, he took a sack. So I'm not sure where his reads were on some of these plays, but it's like the second he did a pump fake, it was 3 seconds long. So it's like his first read, T-Mac, which I'm going to look at real quick, and we'll get to him in a little bit. T-Mac had 10 targets. How many of those were to T-Mac, and how many of those was he trying to go to Jatavion Sanders, Coker, Leggett, Tremble? I mean, who was he waiting for? Because it wasn't like, a smash concept where you get an out route and a corner route over the top, right? So try and hit him high and then bang go low, or hit him low and then bang go high. It just felt like he was waiting 2 or 3 seconds for someone to run the route, right? And then a pump fake because, they weren't open. And then the check down's almost gone, right? Because if you wait 3 seconds, you do a pump fake. Now you have to basically reestablish your base, reestablish your position, kind of scan the field once again a little bit, right? To make sure your check down or your second read is open. It's too long. And the Panthers O-line, it's average right now. You got some guys who are doing good, but you got some guys who are kind of struggling, to be honest with you. So when Andy Dalton is sitting back there for 3 seconds and then pump faking his first read, it looks like, or the actual read he's going to go to, and then trying to throw it again, or trying to run against the Bills defense, whether it's the one he fumbled, right, or just the sacks he took, so just throwing it away, a lot of it made no sense to me. Why Andy Dalton was trying to be like Josh Allen, right? And I was shocked that Josh Allen ran as much as he did. And he had similar numbers too. Let's take a look real quick. I thought the Panthers defense did a good job with him. He was 12 for 19, 163, 1 touchdown, 2 sacks. He lost 20 yards. So when you look at those numbers right there, it's like Andy Dalton was trying to basically copy Josh Allen. Now, Andy Dalton did throw for more yards than him, but he also, completed 4 more passes and threw it 5 more times. But you saw Josh Allen's going left to right, right to left, sometimes left to right, and then right to left. You saw Andy Dalton trying to do the same thing, and it didn't make any sense. And the play calling, too, to start the game off with Andy Dalton, as far as the pass plays, it caught me a little off guard, right? You had some play action on there, but then you had Andy Dalton rolling out. I'm like, what are we doing here? Right? I was a little bit confused. You had the Wildcat a little bit. But as far as Andy Dalton and his blame for how the game went, I gotta say about 50% has to be on him. He consistently just took the Panthers' momentum away, all right, yards away, points away, the sack, all right, the fumbles, the interception. I don't understand how he regressed so bad, to be honest with you. But as far as Andy Dalton, I mean, I don't know that he could have played any worse than he did. Maybe he could have thrown more picks, but boy, that was bad. That was bad today, something I didn't see coming. Now, if the Panthers won or lost, I wasn't going to be too upset. They're 4-4. Not a bad start considering where we were, all right? But to go out and play like this against the Bills, who are kind of struggling on defense, not a good look. Next, let's talk about the run game. This one, I'm kind of going back and forth on. Look at the numbers real quick. 8 for 54. All right. Chuba, 12 for 34. Trevor, 4 for 16. Icky made a comment. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, all right, afternoon or Tuesday, where Icky says it felt like the Bills, almost like they knew our plays or they knew what was coming. All right. Carolina Blitz. Check them out on X. All right. They posted a quote from Icky. This is where we kind of get into trouble. Now, Rico 8 for 54. it seems like you got to ride that more. All right, now Chuba with 12, it's not that much more than Rico. The thing with this is when the Panthers go down 9 to whatever, 9 to 27, 9 to 30, 9 to 40, you can't really run the ball anymore, right? And the defense, I think, was just gassed, to be honest with you. But as we circle back to the run game, and between Rico and Chuba, to me, you've got to give Rico, the nod to start. All right. I thought you were going to do more with Chuba out of the backfield. That's why I said to start him. I thought Chuba overall was potentially a more complete back, right? As far as receiving game, open space, so on and so forth. But if your MO is just going to be just a straight pound it from the jump to the end, then I think you have to start with Rico. Because as I look at the receiving targets, which we'll get to in a second, I see Chuba with 1, right? So if your MO is just going to be just run it, I think you got to start Rico. I thought you were going to get Chuba in the pass game more. Defenses were going to come out, kind of stack the box because, you've been known to just pound the ball the last, 3, 4, 5 games. Instead, that's what you keep doing with Chuba Hubbard. And I'm a little bit confused as to why. Chuba is really a dual back if you ask me, right? And it goes back to the play calling. Everybody essentially knows what's coming with Dave Canales and Brad, if you want to say that Brad contributes to the play calling, right? They know what's coming. So to have Chuba run in there to start the game, I did not love that, to be honest with you. I'm okay with the dual back, right? Because it's only, week 8, week 9. There's still a bunch of weeks left, right? You don't want to put all that load onto one guy. However, if your offense is going to be strictly just pound the ball, then my thing is let Rico go until he gets tired. Let Chuba go, all right? Until he kind of gets tired, right? Maybe after Rico goes, they stack the box and you bring Chuba in, to spread the defense out a little bit or catch some slipping. They put 7-8 in the box, bang, throw Chuba out, get him one-on-one with the linebacker. But based on the offensive line we have and the play calling Dave continues to call, Rico's having more success. You got to start him and then use Chuba and then kind of figure out the game plan from there. All right, so that's kind of my thoughts on the rushing. Then we jump to receiving. All right, you got T-Mac 7 for 99. All right, 10 targets. I know one of those incompletions was one where he was trying to go one-handed in the end zone. I go back and forth on that because I'm like, he's had some drops, which we've kind of swept under the rug a little bit. I don't love the one-handed catches, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, yeah, they're dope in practice, right? One-on-one, off-season type things. But another one in the end zone. And this one, I went back and forth. Could he have got 2? It was tough because that defender's arm was on, his left or right arm, whichever one he didn't use to try to catch it. I'm not as picky on this one, I guess, as I normally would be. But the one-handed, to me, it's kind of got to stop a little bit, all right? Then we look at Jalen Coker. All right, 4 targets, 3 catches. To me, he had a good day. Jatavion Sanders, 3 for 19. Leggett, I thought he'd get more reps, to be honest with you, or more targets. He had 3 targets, all right, 17 yards and 2 catches. All right, then you had Tommy Tremble 1 for 4. But what are my final thoughts on the receiving aspect of the Carolina Panthers today? That's about what you want, give or take. Again, Andy took a bunch of sacks, 7 sacks. And you got to think, at least 4 or 5 of those should have gone to somebody. So Coker with 4 targets, maybe he could have had 6. Leggett, kind of the same thing right there. Sanders, 3 targets, kind of what you expect. Nothing from Mitchell Evans today, right? But McMillan at 10 targets is what you want. And some of those sacks probably could have been dished out to Coker and Leggett, which would have put them at 6 and 5 targets. I thought Coker looked good, right? I thought he was going to keep going and going and going, and maybe the Bills kind of stepped up their defense on him, right? And forced, Andy Dalton to keep having to make progressive reads as the game went on. So they took away T-Mac, they took away Coker. Was Leggett left? Was Tremble left? Was Sanders left? Something we'll have to look at in the film. But as far as receivers, I thought they all played good, right? Leggett did good to me. Coker did good to me. T-Mac, again, just a one-handed thing I go back and forth on. But for the most part, I was pretty happy with how the Carolina Panthers receivers looked. Then we got fumbles right here. All right, Andy Dalton, 2 fumbles, 2 lost, 1 recovered. Woo, that's rough. All right, Andy Dalton he looked rough, like we talked about earlier. He looked rough. We won't spend too much time on that. Let's look at the defense real quick. You had Roseboom leading the day, 12 tackles, 7 solo, 2 tackles for a loss. Now, when I say, like I did before, all right, and in the title, the Carolina Panthers, they got a reality check. I think you can look at this from 2 different perspectives. The first one is, I felt like the Bills' offensive line kind of wanted it more. They were hungry, and boy, were they getting to that spot quick, especially on those run games, those zone reads, the gaps, right? They were getting to the spot quick. And the Panthers' defense, I felt like did all right, but I felt like as the offense wasn't producing or turning it over, the defense was just tired, right? And the Bills' offensive line, man, they were just pouncing. Now, the Carolina Panthers defense did pretty good as well. Right before half, Andy Dalton throws a pick, right? He threw that pick, all right, with basically 2 minutes left right before the half, and he goes from 12-3 to 19-3, right? So the Panthers defense was actually doing a good job holding them, all right, before half, and Andy Dalton goes bang, throws a pick, all right, and then, the Bills basically run it in on that 1 yard line. So the defense as a whole, in the second half was a different story. The Bills came out just swinging touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. So obviously the second half they didn't play great, but you had Trevin Wallace making plays, you had Nick Scott making plays, Tershawn Wharton a little bit. Trayvon Merrick and Nick Scott got tested a lot today, and they did not have a great game. All right, J.C. Horn got a couple flags on him too. Overall, the defense, I thought they played average, maybe slightly above average, in that first half. But even with that being said about the defense, all right, they got tested today, right? But I thought Roseman and Wallace and Scorton still had a good game overall. Roseman 2 tackles for a loss, and they had some interesting personnel in there. I saw Thomas Incoom in there a lot. You had Claude in there, Boogie was in there. It felt like Avira was trying new things, and the Bills basically, kind of torched them. All right. As far as the run game, pass game, they did good, right? But the flags right here, those definitely hurt. No interceptions. The Bills had 1. Kick returns, you had Trevor right here, 4 for 127 being the long. Rico 1 for 29, and then Chuba right here, 1 for 27. Punt returns, didn't get a lot there. Ryan 1 for 2. He missed that one as the half ended, right? They got them on there, right, with 1 second left, and unfortunately he missed it. Final thoughts on this game are, I wasn't sure the Panthers were going to win, especially with Andy Dalton at quarterback, and they didn't win. The play calling confused me a little bit, like I said before, with Andy Dalton. Shocked me. All right, run game, I like the 1-2 system, but you got to figure it out. And if Rico's the hot hand, just ride him for now. It doesn't mean use him, every drive, but I think you got to start the game with him, right? Because if you're not going to pass out of the backfield, I'm not sure why you had Chuba in there to start then. All right, receiving, you had T-Mac, 10 targets, 7 catches, 99 yards. Again, Andy Dalton took a bunch of sacks, a bunch of pump fakes. It wasn't a bad offensive distribution, right, if he gets that ball out, but he didn't, and that led to Coker only getting 4 targets, Leggett only getting 3, right? In defense, they had a good first half, but in the second half, Bills once again came out swinging. All right, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. The defense, there were some bright spots. All right, like I said before, Roseman played good. Trevor Wallace played good. Scored, I thought, played good. And, the defense held Josh Allen to 163 yards passing, right? Something else to account for. With that being said, they also ran it 35 times. So take that with what you will. All right. That's going to wrap it up, though. Panthers Advice is out. We got more content coming this week. Stay tuned. Peace.